complex, the fossil fuels, Silicon Valley. And now look what happened to the country. We have the biggest income disparity since the Gilded Age. Bigger than that. There's more.
Expanded trade has thrown the working class into much more competition than they experienced before trade with lower wage countries took off.
Can say is that as a country, we have to make a different set of choices because the choices we've made have hurt working people.
Congressman, because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value.
Hello, and welcome to another Institute for Sound Public Policy livecast. I'm your host, Kevin Lynn. I'm the Executive Director of the Institute, as well as the founder of U.S. Tech Workers. And it's on U.S. Tech Worker Matters that I wanted to address everyone today in this live session. About 4 days ago, Intel announced some massive layoffs that include massive cost-cutting measures that included laying off plans to lay off 15,000 workers. And boy, you know, it's amazing to me to see something like that because their stock has been really tanking for a long time. I mean, we're going back, I'm showing a chart now going back 5 years. There was a point where back in 2020, it was up around almost $70, and now it's below $20. And Intel's got big problems. But guess what? Finding ways to be more efficient, I don't think are part of the equation that's going to get them out of this. There's a lot more I could say about it, but interestingly enough, a fellow I follow on YouTube, his name is Michael Bordenero. He's a real estate guy, and I love his show because what he does is he just puts the camera on himself and goes. And I love his insights into not just real estate, really, but microeconomics in general. He really understands. He has his pulse on what's going on at the local level when it comes to the economy and the national level, all the way up to the national level. And he actually made some remarks on this Intel layoff that I think could be really helpful for us, because he also includes what he learned from one of his subscribers who currently works for Intel. So here's the video, Michael Bordenero's little talk on Intel.
Cover a little bit of the Intel layoffs because one of my viewers actually wrote me an email who works at Intel and is worried about being personally affected by this. One of my viewers, Dave, he says that he's an engineer at Intel and he's paying very close attention to this layoff situation. He says that he's in relatively good financial situation compared to a lot of other people. He says he makes a decent salary and he has no other debt other than the $50K left on his mortgage. So congrats to you, Dave. That is very good. And he said that this layoff would still cause him a lot of stress and anxiety to lose my job at 57 years old. You know, you're getting close to retirement age and you could be facing this layoff, and a lot of places don't want to hire you once you're in this age bracket. But he did make a funny joke here. He said, I guess things could be worse. At least I don't live in California. But this Intel situation is bad, guys. The stock dropped 25% overnight, okay? And this was all due to an announcement that they're going to be cutting 15,000 jobs, you know, just like that. Profitability is in the tank right now, and just like any other corporation, the quickest way to increase that profitability is to cut staff. That's exactly what they're doing. So according to the CEO of Intel, he's saying that he's trying to save $10 billion for the company by 2025. And this is his statement. Simply put, we must align our cost structure with our new operating model and fundamentally change the way we operate, which always means that, well, see you later. Thanks for all of your hard work. It's just like all these other companies have been doing to increase their profitability in a down economy. Intel should be hiring people, guys. They're a big chip maker. They had a huge grant from the government, which we'll get into in a minute. And they should be a company that's producing jobs because they were given free money from the government to produce those jobs. But instead, they're laying off 15% of their workforce. Another thing the CEO said, our costs are too high, our margins are too low. That's all it comes down to. They need to eliminate people. That's where robots come in. That's where AI comes in.
All right, everyone. Well, hey, that was pretty awesome. Again, Michael, nicely done. And I want to really get into a couple things he mentioned. He had mentioned the fellow Dave who works at Intel. He's 57 years old, and he's fearing he might get bounced. Part of this 15,000 that do get bounced. Now, this isn't the first time Intel has done really large layoffs. Back over the last few years, they've had, they've got rid of a few hundred people here, a couple hundred people there. But back in the 2015, 2016 period of time, they did some significant layoffs. Now, I'm going to pull up my screen again, and I want to share this with you. And so this is what it says. So Intel appears to have settled discrimination lawsuit from 2015 layoffs. Oregon engineer Ron Sir was among 17,000 who lost their Intel jobs from 2015 through 2017. The cuts fell overwhelmingly on older workers, and Sir spent years seeking some kind of reckoning. Well, all I can say is I hope Sir got a really good settlement. This is quite common in the tech industry. The age discrimination really is the way of things, in addition to the kind of country of origin discrimination we're about to get into. And when I say country of origin, so in addition to discriminating against people for being older, now understand, people who are older in this industry, they have a lot of knowledge, years of experience. Someone who joins me on podcasts, Michael Axelrod, he's a scientist. He worked for some 40 years at Lawrence Livermore Labs, and he just trembled when he thought of the new people coming in. How, people of his ilk. I mean, Michael was, hard at work entered the job market in the 50s. And it was pretty amazing because people were so multifaceted then. They had so much experience. They could go over into different sectors and cross-pollinate each other as they came up with ideas and solutions. But that is being pushed out. That for the last few decades, the word was we're looking for young people, not older, more expensive, experienced people. So I'm going to share another chart with you. So when I had mentioned country of origin discrimination. So as we talked about, Intel in the round of layoffs that they were doing from 2015 to 2017, a lot of those cuts fell on older people. Well, look at this is a graph of Intel and its initial and continuing approvals and denials of H-1Bs. So initial approval. So when a foreign worker comes to the country on an H-1B, they are here for 3 years. Now they can extend for another 3 years. That's where we see the continuing applications. But they're also given the opportunity to, if the employer wants to, grant, have them apply for a green card and put them on the road to U.S. citizenship. And that's what many are here to. And we can see the numbers of people that Intel was pushing, or number of foreign H-1B workers that they were bringing in. Now, this is only H-1B. This does not include OPT, optional practical training. This does not, an optional practical training for those who may not be familiar with it. So if you're a foreign student and you get a STEM degree here in the United States, whether it is a four-year degree or an advanced degree, you're entitled then to an employment authorization document. You can work anywhere in the United States for 3 years. Now, the kicker, why employers love this, it's because they can pay you any salary they want. It's practical training, right? And also, too, they don't have to pay FICA or Social Security taxes. So universities love it because it gives them an extra marketing feature that they can attract foreign students who pay full freight. Employers love it because they get someone cheaper than they would an American who's also going to be beholden to them for sponsoring them for other things like an H-1B that could get them a pathway to citizenship. But that's a story for another day. So one thing to remember is when talking about H-1Bs and how Intel has been using them to displace Americans, understand 1/3 of Intel's professional hires for open positions between 2016 and 2021 were H-1B workers. And the bulk of that hiring came immediately after their workforce reductions that we spoke of earlier between 2016 and 2017. Now, H-1B hires comprise close to half the U.S. professionals hired between fiscal years 17 and 18. While Intel laid off these experienced American engineers, the company immediately brought in more H-1B workers to replace them. And so I'm glad, people like Sir were able to get settlements from Intel, but this is widespread. And people that, like Michael mentioned in his video, like Dave, where do you go when you're 57 years old and you're a semiconductor engineer? I mean, that's a big question. Also, Dave had mentioned that Intel was the recipient of, I'm going to share my Safari again here. Intel, they were the recipients of CHIPS Act funding. That was $52 billion that a bill was passed called the CHIPS Act, and it was basically going to allow up to $52 billion to be given to semiconductor companies to increase production here in the United States. And this is the NIST, the National Institute National Institute of Standards of Technology site. And you can find out where and when these funds are being delivered to the companies. So here's a map, but here we scroll down, and here's Intel Corporation. They've already received $8.5 billion of our taxpayer dollars to bring manufacturing here to the United States. And what are they doing? They're cutting headcount. Now, let me tell you one of the issues with cutting headcount that has always irked me. And I learned a lot about this when I was having breakfast one morning. It was just before COVID in 2020, I guess, January 2020. He was a director at a large publicly traded IT manufacturer. And I expected pushback from him when I told him, about what we here at US Tech Workers do. But no, he was totally in agreement because he said, look, Kev, for 20 years, we've been following this efficiency model. Cut corners, make things more profitable, goose the stock price. And they were able to do that at his company. They brought in foreign workers. they had also offshored a lot of, not a lot, but a good bit of their manufacturing. And he said, yeah, we were more efficient, but where we lost out on was innovation and productivity. The productivity hits came when, there were miscommunications, things had to be done twice as a result. And the innovation hits came when they ran into problems. As he explained to me, he said, look, our foreign workers, that, if I tell them exactly what to do, they're going to do it and do it well. However, when there's a problem, it's crickets. Whereas the rest of the world, a lot of workers from the US and Europe, innovative places, you give an engineer a problem and they'll come back at you a couple weeks later and say, hey, let's spitball these solutions. So Intel's problem is not that, wow, we need to cut corners, we need to cut costs. What they need to do is spur on innovation and productivity. And guess what, guys? You're not going to be doing that with a host of H-1B workers, because in the video I'm about to show you, and this video comes to us direct from Intel. It's their Diversity Day celebrations at their Folsom, New Mexico plant, and I think we kind of see why. Well, I'm going to play the video and talk to you about it afterward, and we can kind of come to our own decisions on why Intel maybe is having issues with profitability. I don't even think Intel does diversity very well. I mean, people in that cafeteria look pretty ethnically homogenous to me, and that's in Folsom, New Mexico. Wonder what the issues there are. Where could they be getting all their H-1Bs and OPTs from, I wonder? Well, if you take anything, getting back to that video again, back in the late 90s and early 2000s, when I would make a lot of runs up to Sand Hill, talk to venture capitalists in Silicon Valley, I recall Poe Bronson's book, The Nudist on the Late Shift. It kind of was a window into Silicon Valley, tech culture, and there was this urban legend of this programmer who would strip down and work all night, writing code in one of the shops out there, either in San Francisco or San Jose, I forget which one. But I think that culture is pretty much dead, and frankly, so is probably a lot of our innovation as well. So, in closing, if you've taken anything away from me, from anything away from this video, I hope it's that America's issue is not about efficiency, it's about innovation and productivity. If we are going to become leaders in the manufacturing of semiconductor chips here in the United States, companies like Intel, Micron, and others are going to have to go back to their roots. They're going to have to find that native talent. They're going to have to develop the native talent. And that talent is here, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to share with you one last thing, and this is a teaser. So we have finished our semiconductor industry report, and we're looking at employer policies and practices in the 20th century and 21st century and making recommendations on what they need to do beyond to make us more competitive, to take those investments that are being given to them in with acts like the CHIPS Act, and there's probably going to be more to follow, but the Intels of the world need to lead at this point. And again, this is a teaser. This report, it's in final draft now. We're working now to do a release event in Washington, D.C., probably on the Hill, in one of the either congressional or senatorial offices in late September or early October. And, I encourage everyone to, if you haven't done so already, go to our website and sign up for our newsletter. That way you're on our email distribution and you'll, receive the information. For instance, when we do have a launch date for our report, you'll be one of the first people to hear about it. And but we'll also be sharing that too on social media. So if you're watching this on social media, whether it is X, Substack, or Facebook or YouTube, be sure to either hit that thumbs up or like button and subscribe and follow us. And one last thing in closing. We had mentioned, Michael had mentioned his subscriber Dave, who works at Intel, 57-year-old guy who told him he's in danger of being fired. Attorney John Miano has been working very closely with us over the last several years, and we came up with a presentation entitled "What to Do When You're About to Be H-1 Booted." So, some wonderful activists that work with us have been very proactive when they faced a hostile work environment, not about DEI issues, but where actual country of origin discrimination is going on, where things are getting very tribal because one ethnicity is, doing all the hiring and the firing anymore when it comes to tech. And good people are getting jettisoned, like this fellow Dave. So what you want to be doing is taking copious notes of every encounter that you have. You want to be looking for where, these guys are either, talking about your age as to why you're maybe not getting a great efficiency report or being terminated, or as one activist recently told me, someone who was an H-1B is now is now a permanent lawful resident here in the U.S., said, hey, the reason we run everything now is because you guys, we're smarter than you. Well, that's, ladies and gentlemen, be on the lookout for that. Make note of it. Pull all the information you can. And if you feel that there are issues, that something isn't quite right here, that you're being either, as that gentleman, sir, was, against Intel, you're being discriminated against because of your age, that they are firing Americans before they are firing foreign workers who are ostensibly here on not permanent but temporary work visas. I mean, that's what we should be looking at. If there are any cuts, they really should be done to foreign workers on temporary work employment visas here in the U.S. So, keep that in mind, and, feel free to DM us on social media if you need any assistance out there. We're happy. A lot of our expertise has been developed over the years from working with all of you and learning what you're going through as you navigate, the IT sector these days. Anywho, Kevin Lynn, Executive Director of the Institute for Sound Public Policy and founder of U.S. Tech Workers, signing off. Have a great day out there. Bye-bye.